we're doing is we're actually answering the question to what these results mean. If you remember, we spoke of data that we interpreted and gave across our results. Here, we're actually explaining what all these results mean. Secondly, we're putting across implications. Now, what is that? Why is this result important? We have to give across this information to why it's important. Thirdly, the limitations. We have results, yes, but what information does this result give us? Or what information can't we gain from our results? For example, if our data is about, say, the weather, we can't expect to answer a question that is not related to weather, can we? So what limitations do our results have? We have to give this information to. And finally, in this section, what we do is we give recommendations to further studies that can be carried out accordingly to our subject. And you will come across that conclusion also has that information. You can use that in either, okay? These recommendations are open to being used both in the discussion and the conclusions section. Now, the steps of writing a discussion section. We start off this section by repeating the research question. If you remember, in one of the articles that we looked at in the previous workshop, they actually explicitly gave us the research question in the results section. Now, we can do the same thing here. You don't have to always give it out explicitly. You can paraphrase the question, but you have to be open, okay? The discussion section, we give our question, okay, because we're answering our question. We have to see our information, our question, and then we give information to what they mean. We have to clarify everything. We have to make it clear to the reader. Yes, we have some results, and these results are used to answer our research questions, but what do they mean? Because yes, we do interpret the data in results section, but what is it exactly giving us? What information is it giving us? We have to put this across to the reader. The reader must understand. Once we've given the information of our results, the results of our study, then we go back to the literature at the beginning that we gave in the introduction. Now, this is our study, and this is a study that has been done, that has been carried out before. They have results, they have findings, they have their discussions. What we're doing in the discussion is we're taking our results and then we're taking their results and we're comparing them. We put across the similarities between the previous studies and our findings. We can put across the differences. We have to compare, okay? This is what we're doing. The discussion section, we're using our results, we're using their results, and we're putting across to the reader what is happening. Where is our study standing in literature? Okay, is it opposing what's been put across before, or is it supporting it? By giving across the similarities and differences, we're actually placing our own research in literature. And if we come across any negative results, when you start a research, you have some thoughts to, you see your data and you think, yep, I'm going to come out with this, I'm going to end up with this result, but sometimes you can be surprised to find negative results. The thing you must not do not get rid of these results. If you have negative results, you have to add them in. You have to explain them. You have to tell the reader what negative results you have come across and why they have come across. Okay, this is important information. In the discussion section, you explain all of your data, but make sure it's the same information you spoke of in the results. And finally, you give information. You're supposed to explain everything, okay? explain what's been going on, what you have found, what other people have found, and you have to bring them together and draw a picture of where your study is standing. This is very important. Now, we have some do's and don'ts, just like I've repeated many times. The discussion section, we have a group of do's and we have a group of don'ts. Now, when we look at the do's, your discussion section, open it up. What must it include? Major findings. Okay, just like in the results section, start with your major findings. Okay, the most important, you have your first question and you will have a few findings supporting your first question. Use the most important ones first. Okay, just like in the results section, start with the main majors and then work down to the minors. Now, we firstly have our major finding, and then we have to explain what this is. What is this finding telling us? Yes, you have come across some data. Yes, you've explained that this data has a meaning, but what does that meaning have? Okay, you have to express everything very clearly. And then, how does this finding of yours or these results, how does it relate to the relevant studies that have been carried out before? Be careful to relate the citations you use, the sources you go on. They have to be related to your subject. Okay, this is very important. And the limitations of your findings, just like I said before, what can you not answer with your results? You have to add this in as well. You have to state that, yes, I have this result, but this result does not help me to answer this question. You have to state that. And finally, you have to give suggestions for further research. What do I mean by this? You've finished your research, you've concluded your research, but this could be carried on. Further research could be done with your findings, or maybe you can give direction to other studies that have to be researched that are connected to your subject. You have to give this information, but make sure you do not give too much information. Keep some of them to yourself because you can find other researchers carrying out the research that you plan to do. Now, all of these are the yeses. These are the information that the discussion has to include. What about those that don't have to be in there or that should not? Now, we have a few no-nos. The first of these no-nos, the most important, do not add in any new results or data. Okay, now, we look at the structure of our product, this academic product that we're going to put across. When you look at the structure, if you have some new information, add it in the results. If you have some important data, add it in the results, okay? After the results section, you cannot introduce any new information, any new results, or any new data, okay? This is very important. If you have added something, then you have to go back to your results and you have to include it there as well. Adding new information here is a definite no-no. Unwarranted speculation. Now, while putting across your findings, of course, you're going to add statements of your own. When adding statements of your own, be aware that you can support them, okay? Be aware that you can put across these statements, otherwise it could be a problem for you. Adding unrelated issues, I have a subject at hand, okay? The information, the issues, the results that I put into my product has to be related to my subject. If I have information or an issue or a result that is not related to this subject, do not include it into your discussions or into your paper at all, okay? It all has to be related. If you do have some interesting information that isn't related to the subject, write another article. Don't throw it away, okay? Nothing goes to waste in your research. If you have data, you can use it as effectively as you like, and you can write a few articles. So I would advise you to keep it to the side, finish this, and write another one with the unrelated topics. Now, Conclusions not supported by your data. What does this mean? We're concluding every finding that we have, every result that we have, okay? But concluding something that I cannot support, that if I cannot show evidence to something that I'm saying, that is a definite no-no, okay? If I am putting across a statement, just like I said before, if I am concluding something, I have to be able to support it. If I cannot support it, there's no way that can stay in your article, okay? Take it out. It's a definite no-no. Okay, now, a few notes that I would advise you to take. These are things that you should keep in your mind. You don't have to do all of them, but it's good to remember when you're writing an article, and it can make life slightly easier. Now, when we look at the verb tense, in the discussion, you use present verb tense. But having said this, I'm not saying you have to definitely use present tense throughout the discussion, because if needed, especially when you're referring to past studies, you have to use past tense, okay? Stick to present, but use other tenses if you have to. Now, when you look at your discussion and conclusion, just like the rest of the paper, there's a big structure, okay? They're all linked to one another. But discussion and conclusion are very linked, okay? Think of them as an inverted pyramid. You give the general aspects of your research. You give the general information of your research, of your results in the discussion section, okay? Because you have information of your literature, you have information of your methods, you have information of your results. That's the general information. What you do is you start to shape it down, you start to narrow it down as you go down, and in the conclusion, you focus on the specific information that you need. Okay, so discussion is general, narrow down, and when you come to the conclusion, stick to the specific information that is related to your study question. Now, the flow of your results, methods, and discussion section is very important. Like I said last lesson, last workshop, in the methods we have subsections. Yes, I said that try to keep the results section similar. Try to structure them similarly. What we do with the discussion is try to structure the discussion similar to the other two, okay? Because when the reader opens your article or your thesis or your product, you want them to understand, okay? When you look at every section and they are related, it's going to be much more understandable and much more effective. Another thing, use the same terms, okay? Sometimes you have certain subjects where there are 3 different terms that can be used. Don't use all 3 of them. Okay, this is very important, because throughout your paper, if you're using different terms in different sections or in different parts of your product, then people are going to think that you're talking of 3 different things. Stick to one term. Okay, choose your term, for example, translation or interpretation. If you're using translation, use it throughout the paper. If you're using interpretation, use it throughout the paper. Okay, stick to the same terms. And language style, the academic language style that you choose to use in your writing, stick to it. Okay, do not change the style, because if you change the style, if you're constantly going from one tone to the other, then it's going to be very confusing for the reader, and it's going to look very jumbled up and very, very messy. Do not do that. Stick to the same style throughout the paper. Keep the flow going. Now, when we look at some of the subsections, we have a question, we're answering them. How can we lay out the paragraph? I've given this here, but you don't have to stick to them all the time. When you start the paragraph, give the conclusion first. For example, you have a question, answer it, okay? Give the answer, give your conclusion, and then support it with your relevant results. Okay, you've answered the question, you've supported it with your results, and then what you do is you add the literature, like I said before, okay? You integrate your results with the literature, compare them, support them, put across the differences, but finish off with the literature. This is just the main frame that you can use for throughout your discussion section. But having said, you don't have to stick to this. There are other ways you can structure your paragraphs or your sub sections in the discussion. And another thing, avoid repeating, okay? Repetition is not good in an article, okay? Because the reader is going to get bored. Think of reading the same sentence over and over and over again. It's a no-no, okay? Try to paraphrase your sentences, okay? It's very easy. I'm going to explain, give you a few tips on paraphrasing later. But try to paraphrase them, okay? Because when we look at the sections, results, yes, we've given the data and we've interpreted the data. We told the reader what these numbers mean, okay? But now we have a discussion section. Now we've interpreted it there. We have our results, but we have our results here as well. We're adding meaning. We're going into depth. We don't have as many raw data as in the results, but it's the same thing. We're saying the same things over again. So what do? We do not repeat. We paraphrase them. We put them into different structures. We put them across differently, okay? Think of it this way. If you're repeating yourself, you have a, you have, say, the results section. We have the results section, we have a discussion section. If they are the same as each other, if they are identical, if you're repeating, then why do we ever need a discussion section? We don't. But we do, because the discussion section is the section where we bring together our results and literature. You can't cite in the method, you can't cite in the results section. Okay, in the results or the findings section, we can only put across our own results. We can't cite. But in discussion is where we argue about our results. That is where we can support our ideas. That is where we support our answers. It's very important. So don't repeat your results. You already have a results section. You don't need another one in your discussion. Okay, here are some verbs that you can use. Those who have attended the first workshop may remember word shifting. Okay, the difference of academic English is actually using word shifting. Okay, that's the biggest difference because it's English at the end of the day. Using the words, using formal words is very important. Here are a few verbs that you can use in your articles. These are just some examples that I wanted to give to you. There are many more. If you want to learn many more, my advice is read articles, but look at the verbs that they have used. Okay, if you can see and find new verbs that you find are very interesting, that you like, take a note of them. Try to use them in your articles or in your products that you choose to produce. Now, let's go through some of them. For example, if you're going to use used or performed, instead you can use applied, administered, employed, relayed. Instead of was created, was used to, or was performed to, you can use simulated, replicated, imitated, and so on. I'm not going to read all of them because I don't think I'm really going to have enough time, or I'll just read the formal verbs that you should use. Illustrates, proves, evidences, strengthens the position. Now, the reason I'm reading these out is because I want you all to learn the proper pronunciation of these words. Okay, that's why I'm reading them out. Attributes, illustrates, advances the idea that, deduce, approximate, derive, extract, evidence, confirms, corroborates, and underlines. These are the formal verbs that you should include in your texts, okay, when writing in academic English. And like I said, instead of trying to understand the article sometimes, if you're looking for verbs, try to look at the interesting verbs they have used. For example, when you look at an article, you realize that the researcher, the author, has used applied instead of used. Note that down. Write applied, write what its meaning is in English, okay? Do not use a Turkish dictionary to learn new words. When you're looking at the sentences, take note of the English, definitions, not the Turkish, because you want to learn these words, okay? You want to learn this language. You don't want to learn it off by heart. If you learn it off by heart, you're going to forget, okay? The linking of these words in your lexicon, they have to be firm. To make them firm, learn the English definitions. Okay, I'm talking too much again. We've said paraphrase. Paraphrase is very important in articles. Just like I said, we don't want repetitions. We hate repetitions, okay? You don't want to repeat yourself, because when you're constantly repeating the same sentences again and again, they're going to think this person does not know how to speak. This person does not know English, okay? And it's going to be very boring, and the reader's going to be like, God, enough, I don't want to read this anymore. They're going to throw it to the side. No, we have to attract everybody, okay? We want effective use of language. So if I don't want to repeat myself, what can I do? I can paraphrase. But we don't only use paraphrase to stop ourselves from repeating our own sentences or our own structures. When we are citing other studies, previous sources that have been carried out, what we can do is, I've given 5 steps to paraphrase them so that we can stay away from plagiarism. Because if we take the whole paragraph of somebody else in our introduction, in our literature review, or if I take the whole sentence in my discussion section, that's going to go into plagiarism. That's going to be a very big problem. So to get away from this, we use paraphrasing. Okay, these are 5 steps for paraphrasing a source text. What do I mean by source text? The text or information that I am taking from a previous study. The source here is another study that has been carried out before. So I'm taking their text. I want to include it in my product, in my article or my thesis, but I don't want to take it as it is. So I have to change it. How do I do this? Firstly, look at your source article, the information that you're going to take. Read it. You have to understand what that paragraph or what that sentence is telling you, okay? If you fully understand the text, then put the text to the side and start making notes of the key terms that it is using. But what is important is that these key terms actually reflect the meaning of the source text. Because if you're taking key terms that aren't important to the meaning, that's just wasting your time and you're going to turn out with something totally different. Do not do that. Take the most important key terms. Key terms actually means taking what is important. Now, we make a list of these key terms. Okay, we've put the source text to the side. We have our key terms in front of us and we know what that source text is saying. We know what it wants us to say. So what we do now is we write it out. Using these key terms, we write the paragraph and then we go back to the source text, compare them both to see if our text is giving the same information. If it is, brilliant. All we have to do is cite the person at the end and we have paraphrased a source text. Now, ways to paraphrase, that's just steps to paraphrase. That's one step, but these are other ways that you can paraphrase. For example, the voice of the source text. We have our source text. If it uses an active voice, we change it to a passive voice. If it uses a passive voice, we can change it to an active voice. The second way that we can use is using a thesaurus. synonyms. That's one of the best ways to paraphrase something. If you can't change the structure of it, if you can't change the voice of the text, then use synonyms for certain terms. But you have to be careful here. When you look at the the synonyms that you can use, make sure you know the word that you are taking, the word that you have chosen, because there are some words that they can have the same meaning, but some words cannot be used in every sentence. They cannot be used with the same meaning in every structure. Make sure you know what the word is, okay? Be very careful. And including introductory phrases. So I'm taking their text. Yes, I've played around. I've changed a few words, used synonyms, and then I can say, for example, Miller 1992 notes that, and then I add that text in. I've paraphrased it. Very simple. And then using specific signaling verbs to show your position. Now, using verbs that are natural, such as believe, agree verbs that produce agreements such as shows, or disagreements such as neglect. Now, this is very important. Why? Because when you're discussing your results and you want to put similarities or differences, you have to show the reader where you stand. Okay. For example, say, for example, Miller 1992. I'm neutral, okay? I don't agree or disagree with what Miller says, okay? So I will say Miller 1992 believes that. If I'm agreeing with him, I'll say Miller 1992 shows that, because his results, his findings are the same as mine, and my findings support his. So I will write Miller 1992 shows that, okay? Showing where you stand is very important, because the reader must know if you're agreeing with the person or disagreeing with him, because the reader must understand what you're saying, what your findings are saying. Having said, you can't just sit there thinking, oh, I think I will agree with Miller. No, it's not if you personally believe what Miller is saying, but if your findings agree with it, okay? Don't take anything personal here. It's not if I agree, but if my findings agree with what these people are saying. And finally, merging multiple sentences. Say, for example, Miller has written a whole paragraph that I can use. What do? I take that paragraph and I break it down and form it, change it into one sentence. This is another form of paraphrase. I'm trying to be a little quick because I'm talking too much again. The conclusion. What do we do with the conclusion? We use clear, simple language to put across the general idea of our study. Okay, I'm going to give you guys this slide so you will be able to read the information. I'm just going to keep it short because we don't have much time. What we're doing is we're giving the general idea. What we firstly do is give the information of what our aim is or what the purpose of the study is, and then we go into what our findings are saying, but specific findings, okay? No extra, no excess information is needed here. And then if we wish, just like in the discussion section, but my advice, do not give recommendations both in the discussion and conclusion. I'd prefer you all gave the recommendations in the conclusion, but it's up to you. Now, what to do when writing a a conclusion section. Avoid introducing your thesis. You don't have to go back to the introduction. People have read that. They just want to know what your aim is or what you're aiming to find, your purpose. And again, no new ideas or evidences at this section. This information, results, ideas have to be given beforehand, okay? The conclusion is where you're wrapping everything up. It's coming to the end, okay? You're giving information very short, maybe a few paragraphs, 2 or 3 or 4 maybe, depending on what your subject is and how long your paper is. you're just wrapping it up, giving them small information of what your aim was, what your method was, what your findings were, and what your results are. And if you wish, you can add the recommendations for further studies. Again, make sure the academic style or the tone of your writing is the same as it is throughout your article or your product. And you can use in closing, in summary, or in inclusion. Okay, you can begin this section with these phrases, but my advice, don't, because you want effective language. You can use this if you're giving an essay at university, but try to keep it out of your thesis or your articles. Now, we have 6 minutes left. The review article. Here, I want to say, just generally, you guys have these articles. You can see that in a review article, we don't have a discussion section. Why? Because the whole article is a discussion. The body of the article is discussing the previous studies, giving across their information, their results, and what they've said. It's comparing, putting the similarities, the differences across. We don't need a discussion because it is a big discussion. What we do in the review article is just give the conclusion of the aim of this study. As you can see, as a result of reviewing all available data, what is that sentence saying? It's saying that this article is a review article. I've reviewed previous data, and this is what I found, and this is what should be done. That's the information it's giving in its conclusion section. And of course, just a few important tables or graphics that they find suitable, though try to keep the tables out. Refer to the previous tables or to the previous graphs that you gave before in the discussion or the results section. Try to keep them out of the conclusion. When we look at the research article, we see that we have a discussion section, but the difference is I want you all after the workshop or within this week to check the articles, compare the results with the discussion, and you will see the differences. Because in the discussion, we don't have information, we don't have numbers. What we're doing is we've taken the meanings, yes, that we had in the results, we're taking it into the depth. We're giving much more information. We're adding our own speculations, our own thoughts, and we're relating it to the literature at hand. And as you can see, a very short conclusion. The conclusion is shorter than all of them. I'm not going to go into detail again. Here, this is a very short article. The reason I want you to see this is the discussion section in this article is very short, as you can see, just as it is in the conclusion and recommendation section. Now, let's go back to the structure of the article. This is our 4th workshop. We've actually finished the article. We started with the introduction, then we went into the methods and results. Today, we've completed the discussion and the conclusion. This is the structure of our product. May it be an article or a thesis, whatever. Yes, whatever you are producing, even it could be a slide, a presentation, sorry. This is the structure you want, okay? Now, when we look at the structure, we're building up. We start with the introduction, giving the general information. We go into the method. How are we going to find these results? What are we going to use? What path will we walk on? And then the results. I have data. What is my data? I'm giving information to this. But I'm describing them. I'm giving meaning to the results. And then I'm going into the discussion. Now, what am I doing with the discussion? I'm going back to the introduction section. I'm getting all of the information from there back, because I need information from literature, and then I'm combining them. I'm arguing about my results. I'm saying that I have this information, and this information, this result supports Miller 1992, or my results disagree with Miller 1992. Or I can say my results aren't actually enough. Further research must be done. Okay, the discussion is the heart of your article. That is where you give everything. That is where you give your evidence. That is where you put across all of your thoughts, all of your speculations, and it's linked with the literature. And at the end, what are we doing with the conclusion? We are giving a recap, okay? But we're not going back to the beginning. We're not saying this thesis or this article. No. We are just stating our aim. After we state our aim, we are giving information to the method that we have used so that the reader knows. And then we are using the specific information, the specific findings that we have gained in our discussion, that we've put across in our discussion. We're just giving that information. And if we wish, we are giving further recommendation for further studies. Like I said, be careful, do not give too much information on further studies, but make sure you do give information on further studies, because if you give proper recommendations, the reader's going to think, this person knows this subject very well. He or she knows what he or she is talking about. Give recommendations, but not too much, okay? Because you don't want somebody else coming along and carrying out the study or the research, that further research that you had planned to do. So, sorry again. So this is the structure of our article. Keep the flow, like I said. Academic English, all you do is use formal language. And we finished the article today, yes. What are we going to do in workshop 5, our last workshop? Well, I'm going to talk about how we're going to speak. That's where we're going to go into speaking, because yes, we have the academic language. Yes, we've produced something in text. How do we put that to words? So next workshop, that's what we are doing. And I have another list for you all. In the past workshops, I've given shows and films and documentaries. Here I have a book list. Some of my favorite books are in this list. I would advise you to read. Seriously, guys, if you have time, read. Reading a variety of genres, different types of books, magazines, articles, books, novels, anything. Make sure you read a wide genre of them, because the more different styles you read, the more vocabulary you're going to learn, and the more structures you're going to learn, and the better your English is going to get. Thank you very much for listening, everybody.